No, we were hoping to talk to the Labour MP for Rotherham, Sarah Champion, at this point, but having agreed to do an interview with us, she pulled out this morning. We weren't given any reason. But we're joined by the UKIP MP, Mark Reckless. UKIP is, in a sense, the official opposition there, isn't it? You've got 10 of the council's 63 seats, a council dominated, obviously, by the Labour Party. The minister said that the next elections for the whole council will be in 2016. Is that soon enough?
I think it would be better if we could bring that forward to May 2015 to coincide with the general election, because I think that would give a chance of clearing out the previous regime of councillors at Rotherham and getting a fresh start early. Obviously, we've got this intervention from central government, and I support that happening. But ultimately, we want to see Rotherham and the people of Rotherham take control of their own affairs again, and this time do it properly, particularly for the children who were so let down by the previous regime.
One of the reasons, one of the excuses, you may put it, for the failure of Rotherham Council, which was monumental, was apparently some of the councillors and the officials, they feared being brand racist because the perpetrators were largely, if not almost entirely, of Pakistani origin. They were from a Muslim background. Was that a legitimate reason?
I don't think it was legitimate, and I don't think it should have happened. But I understand why the people acted as they did, because when people have previously made that as an allegation, they have taken Anne Cryer, for instance, in Keighley, but other less reputable cases. There's been court action and criticism, and even people being ostracised by people who would usually support them. And I think the people who, and Anne Cryer in particular, who blazed a trail on this, we owe an awful lot too, and we're now able to talk honestly about these sort of matters in a way we weren't even 5 years ago, and I think that has to be good.
According to the Casey report, named after the author, obviously, someone called Janigar Akhtar, who was the council's deputy leader before losing his seat last year, he had, she says, influence which, quote, extended to the police. Is there need now for a separate investigation into the police in Rotherham?
I think there may be, because I think many people yesterday felt that South Yorkshire Police got off very lightly, and they have, I don't know whether an equal share of responsibility, but a very important share of responsibility, as I'd also say with the CPS and the prosecuting authorities. And the report yesterday from Louise Casey was about Rotherham Council. And my frustration rather is this, is the Home Affairs Committee, on which I said we did a year's report that was published in June 2013 on this issue. And we identified a lot of these problems, and in particular...
That's a House of Commons Select Committee?
Yeah, this was June 2013 from the Home Affairs Select Committee, and we looked at Rotherham and Rochdale, and despite the problems in Rochdale, we made a very clear distinction between Rotherham, where there was complete denial and nothing was being done, we felt, and Rochdale, where they'd identified the problems, accepted that, and were trying at least to make things better for the future. And I
guess that's why Rochdale Council still exists and Rotherham doesn't.
Yes, but what I wonder is, why wasn't action taken earlier? In our report, we questioned Ofsted and say, why on earth had they lifted the notice to improve on Rotherham Children's Services in 2011? We demanded that Ofsted come in and do an urgent report by December 2013, which I don't believe happened. And we said that all these training and all these systems they supposedly had in place to deal with child exploitation they said they'd now set up, actually they weren't meeting and they weren't happening. And we were so critical of Rotherham, and we did then get the J report, which was very good, but it wasn't until August 2014, and now we only get this in February 2015, and all-out elections only in May 2016. I just wish it had happened more quickly.
John, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I know that area very well because I used to live up there in the early 70s, and it was a very rumbustious working class area. There was lots of work, there was very little immigration, and a lot of the immigration at that time was absorbed into the community. We've got to remember that historically Jews, Irish people, Scottish people coming down here, they've always been absorbed historically. But since the Second World War, we've had some real tranches of people who've come in and who've kept themselves away, and the white middle-class establishment have kept themselves away. I think the real problem is, and I think it is about the breakup of the family, why would you ever allow a local authority or anybody in the state to look after our troubled children? Why would you do? I was in local authority, well, I was in a Catholic orphanage, and I can only say I'm so glad I wasn't brought up by some of these dunderheads who somebody's on £2,000 or £3,000 a week. A child in Rotherham costs £2,000 or £3,000 a week.
Can I just, because we're running out of time on this, can I, in a sense, this is an open goal for you now come these elections. You are the opposition. Labour is in sackcloth and ashes. It's their council. They've appointed most of the people. They dominated it. But don't you have to be careful how you fight this campaign? I mean, you had a poster at one stage in Rotherham, 1,400 reasons why you should not trust Labour again. Was that a legitimate poster?
I think it's legitimate to try and hold Labour to account at the ballot box, and that's part of the process. You need to make local government operate better. I'm not blaming sort of Labour or blaming single-party control for causing this, but I do think it did allow it. And I think what we do need is more political competition. And if you have these areas that are one-party states, perhaps they could open up their selection procedures outside the party, and if they don't respond to what people want and they don't do things properly, then you see what we see in Rotherham, where sort of UKIP are coming through and holding them to account, which I think is right and how our democracy works. But can I just take up a point
very briefly, because
from John?
we're running out of
time. It wasn't
time.
just children in care. We spoke to one 14-year-old survivor on our Home Affairs sort of committee investigation, and when she gone to the authorities in Rotherham and reported multiple rape, all that happened was Rotherham told them, went to see her parents and said what the parents do is they should repay the alleged abusers £500 for drugs and alcohol they'd bought for this 14-year-old girl. It was just absolutely terrible what went wrong.
And you're quite right to point that out. It involved a lot of kids who were actually with their parents. The parents couldn't do anything about it even when they tried to.
Were arrested when they complained.
Mark Reckless, thank you very much.